On today's episode of the College Lacrosse Show, we chat about a crazy weekend across college lacrosse, Rutgers with their first win over Maryland in 35 years, Ohio State stays rolling, and Cuse gets a marquee victory in the Dome. Lots of other good stuff as well. I think you're going to really enjoy this episode. Let's get right into it. Episode 10 of the College Lacrosse Show. Let's go. Hello. Welcome back to the College Lacrosse Show. And Dan, we've made it 10 episodes.
Against all odds. We're 10 episodes in. We have made it. We're still going.
Yep, we got through, I guess 11 weeks now because we did miss the one. And I think doing this podcast, we want to try to draw narratives throughout the year and try to help our audience understand what's going on. I don't know what's going on anymore. We just keep having I thought Notre Dame was going to win big in the Dome. I certainly, obviously, like everyone else, thought Maryland was going to win. And it's just been an incredible season, really. Best, kind of most parity, most chaos we've seen in a long time here. And it's really just been fun to watch.
Yeah, I was talking to somebody else about it this week, and we can mention more when we get to talking about Maryland Rutgers in particular. But it's an interesting year in that, like, the level of game where the upset surprises me is totally different than it's been in the past. Like, Rutgers beating Maryland, like, yeah, I'm surprised. But is that surprising me more than Wagner beating LIU in overtime? No. Like, that's a more shocking result given the way this year has gone right now. Like,
I kind of thought the same thing, yeah.
Way more surprising than Syracuse beating Notre Dame. Or, you know what I mean? Like, the top tier teams, the traditional top tier teams, when they beat each other this year, regardless of where they currently are in polls, I'm way less surprised than when, like I said, like a winless Wagner goes to a good LIU team and wins it overtime. It's just way more surprising to me this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've been doing these tiers the last few weeks, and it feels kind of lazy to be like, okay, well, we're going to bump Cuse up to the top tier and Notre Dame out, whatever. But like that's pretty much what it is. I still think Notre Dame can win a national championship, and Cuse just handled them. So by proxy, Cuse is still in the mix for that as well. Like there's legit 6, 7, 8 teams probably. Carolina's at 8. They're good enough to get there. Like it's I don't want to keep redoing the tiers every week because I think it'll be good to just kind of give them a fresh look before the playoffs. But man, there's some good teams. Let's start.
I think you could go as far as 12 and 13 deep. Honestly, like Duke is around 12 right now. Like you're telling me a hot Donowski and the talent they have. Like sure, I believe it.
Yeah, and a lot of teams getting right, and also we have some really weird RPI differences. Like I don't know if you read the bracketology article by Inside Lacrosse. The resumes and the rankings are way out of whack. I can't really recall. Like Cornell, according to Inside Lacrosse, it has like the 8th best resume. I mean, they're like the consensus number 1 team right now, and it's just and RPI matters a lot. People who don't want RPI to matter, there's no really good solution. So we could see some bizarre things happening at the end of the year, depending what goes on here. Let's start in the Dome. A great effort for Cuse. Really a signature win that they've been looking for in the Gary Gate era. And a bit of a signature performance for 22, I'd say as well. He's certainly taken some flack in these big games. He was very, very good, especially statistically. And yeah, Cuse really needed this one.
Yeah, I think, for Cuse, and I think to start, honestly, you deserve a shout because earlier in the year we were still doing the are they back kind of talk around teams like Cuse. I think you had made the case like Cuse might be back, and it might actually be because their defense can be really good. They held Notre Dame scoreless for almost 40 minutes, 39-53, 7 seconds shy of 40 goalless minutes for Notre Dame. And I think I was looking, John Stark, who's their SID at Cuse, does an awesome job, but he had said, longest scoreless drought that Cuse has held an opponent to since they joined the ACC in 2014. And it's Notre Dame's longest drought since 2019. This game was 3-0 Notre Dame and then 9-3 Syracuse 40 minutes of game clock later. Like it's just insane. And I think to me, it's particularly impressive because when we talk about Notre Dame a lot, we talk about like they have a stable of guys who it's like, you need one, he can go get one. Like Jake Taylor is just going to get open and get one for you at some point in there. Jordan Faison's going to dust somebody and put one on net in there. Or Chris Kavanaugh is just going to do like some incredible bulldog Chris Kavanaugh thing and soak a ton of checks and score a goal. But none of that happened. Syracuse stopped all of that for 40 minutes. Like I couldn't believe as I was seeing that. And I think Notre Dame's now in an interesting spot, right? They've got a 5-3 record. They don't play a lot of games. Like they have just like a light schedule every year. They only have 3 games left. And they have Cleveland State and Marquette in there as wins. Like, their wins are Georgetown, Duke, Michigan, and they're 5-3. UVA, UNC, and Penn are left. Penn and UVA are 30 and 20 in the RPI respectively. Like Notre Dame is in a, like you can't, I don't think they can lose again. Like, it's a dicey spot for them. But I thought the defense was the story. To your point, yeah, Spallina deserves a shout. The book forever has been, you put a really good defender on him and he's going to take a back seat, whether voluntarily or not. Or they play a really good team. He can defer sometimes. He was everywhere in this game. He had his fingerprints all over the win.
Yeah, we talked last week, and listening back, I was a little bit critical of Duke and UNC and Penn State about not being kind of emotionally ready, and I don't like being critical of like character adjacent things like that. If you want to see what a team that's fucking ready to play, look at Cuse. It was 3-0, and then they just started truck sticking guys. And do I condone all those hits? No. Some of them were high. They got some flags. Some of them, if you're a Notre Dame fan, you probably thought were cheap shots. But that's the reality of this sport sometimes. And they said, I think Notre Dame, when it was 3-0, was expecting a rollover, and Cuse just started decking guys. And they cleaned out the front of the net. Michael Grace had his best game of the year, I thought, by a mile. And Cuse is super long, especially when you consider that Figueres guards the best guys. So their off-ball guys are all the big guys. It's Dwan and Grace and some of the other guys they have. So, and Figueres, by the way, sneaky has handled a lot of these matchups pretty well against the best guys. Like he's going against the best guys night in, night out. You mentioned like Chris Cav. Just didn't get beat a lot. Chris still played pretty well. Had his points in the end, I think, but Cuse doesn't get beat a lot. And then Dwan and Grace, there's just sticks in the lanes, and those guys try to like blow you up, and they did. And I don't know how Taylor was still playing at the end of this game. He got rocked like 6 times. And if you're Jake Taylor, you're getting up, you're telling them you got 2 rings, you're talking a bunch of shit, as I would too, and the Cuse guys are talking it right back, and that's how college sports like works. You're the king. People come for you, and then they either take the throne or you take it right back. And Notre Dame's still going to have a chance to take it back. Looking at the Cuse offense, Spallina was obviously very good. Hiltz is playing some of the best lacrosse I think he's played in college. They put this Peyton Anderson down low. I think that is huge. It gives him some dodging presence. He's a load to deal with. There's the one possession out of the stoppage. Schwitzenberg gets hurt out of the stoppage, and Peyton Anderson just runs through the new guy. He's like, "Oh, you're gonna send this guy out? Okay, let's go." And it frees up Hiltz to just float around the top. He's always around the top. He's a lot higher in the formation than I think we're used to seeing him. And it just causes all sorts of issues. And he can stretch you as a shooter. He can really play the point guard role. And I think it's just a lot to deal with, kind of having a floater out there who's as skilled as Hiltz is.
Yeah, I think with Anderson, I watched a lot of Anderson in high school because he went to Brunswick here, which is not too far down the road from me. And when I watched Anderson play in high school, I always thought he was at his best outside of structure, outside of scheme. Like, in a scramble lacrosse situation on like a 3-on-2 ground ball, whatever, like those are the moments where his athleticism just takes over and he really shines. But I thought he looked pretty good within the flow of the offense in this game too. I think he's playing his way onto the field there. He's a freshman and he's like, you can't deny him the minutes anymore. To the hits and the physicality, I think I was thinking this as I was watching it back, but a lot of guys on that field play indoor, and you kind of got some indoor vibes from Cuse in that game, like down 3-0. Like, no, like we're not going to, it's not how this game's going to start. Right. We're going to change the tone of this game right now. And I even remember, I think I was thinking, like, if this was a box game, there would be a fight at some point soon in this game where Cuse would be like, let's get ourselves going. Let's, send somebody to the box, send a message, and change the tone of this game right now. And it looks like that's what they were basically trying to do, and successfully did it. But I remember kind of having that same thought of like, okay, like they can't actually fight somebody, but they're going to do basically the closest possible thing and just start hammering guys all over the field. And look, it's like you said, if you're a Notre Dame fan, you probably didn't love it, but it's a way this game gets played sometimes. And if you sit there and complain about it, then you've already lost. They're already in your head. They've already accomplished what they were trying to do.
Yeah, and also, like, this is why teams don't go three-peats all the time, right? Like, last year with that Notre Dame team, that 3-0 gets to 6-0 and 7-0, and the game's over. And this year, Cuse said, we've taken our lumps against you guys, and we're going to give it right back to you. I totally agree. I think it had huge box vibes, whereas it was just we're just going to defend, especially the middle of the defense. Also, Cuse always better at the Dome. Beating Cuse at the Dome is a different animal than beating them on the road. It always has been, and it always will be, especially when there's 11,000 in there, including...
I was going to say, that crowd was nuts.
Including Casey Powell. Always cool to see him there. One thing I want to say about Notre Dame. So I wrote this article last week. We referenced it talking up Notre Dame. One issue that I think Cuse exposed a little bit is they are a little bit one-handed. They're starting six. Taylor's one-handed. McLean is fairly one-handed. The two football guys are fairly one-handed, especially when it comes to shooting. And I think Cuse kind of leaned on that a little bit, and McCool was really big. Like he ate up a Jeffrey right-handed shot pretty easily, and I think they got a little bit jammed up at times. And I think that's going to be something Notre Dame's got to solve besides Chris Cav. Angrick is fairly two-handed. I think that's something they're going to have to figure out is some of that spacing stuff. And the reality is they're going to have to hit shots with the weak hand sometimes. You're just going to have to do it. And then the last thing I want to say is because Anderson's out there, they're playing without an off-ball guy, Syracuse. Their stretching defense is way out. They're playing like three guys within 10 yards of the midfield line, and Notre Dame was really trying to press out. And then Anderson and Splina are behind the goal. There's no one inside. I think it's really throwing off defenses, and it's proven to be a good strategy. I think March and Aderna are having a really good middle of the season here, and obviously excited to play for Coach O this summer. Okay, let's move to our next game, which is Ohio State Hopkins. Ohio State. We kind of just keep saying the same thing.
Yeah, they're Ohio State is like we said it, but I think they and Maryland are the two best teams in the country at forcing the opponent to play the game that we want to play.
Yeah.
They're just built to do that. I think looking at this game, I may have overrated the power of the alumni and homecoming weekend for the Hopkins Blue Jays. I thought they would spur their team to victory, but I would say, like, I think it's not an excuse. It never is, but you have to offer the context for Hopkins that injuries are starting to tear this team up a little bit. I don't think Melendez was out there. Patrick Hackler's season, I think, is over. They're looking for answers in goal. But, it's Galinas, I think, made 4 saves in this game. Jack Webb, I think, only made 1. They couldn't find consistency in net. Like, you lose those guys, it's going to be hard to beat a top 5 team. And you compound that with the fact, I think Chavette shot 0 for 7. They don't have all the pieces that were going to be so critical for them this year. We talked at the beginning of the year about Melendez, like, being a leader on that offense and, getting a transfer like Lou Stout in goal and Hackler from Yale as like an All-American two-way midfielder. Like, those are not guys where they go down, like, next man up is what you say, but it's never that easy. I think Hopkins crushed the face-off stat in this game, but if you go to my ugly ground balls without face-off wins, Ohio State won it 12-11. The Jays just were not and are not deep enough to handle everything that Ohio State does. Not many teams are, but with injuries in particular, Hopkins, Matt Collison's a wonderful player, and Charlie Eiler's been great since he got into the lineup, but they just don't have the tools right now to handle a defense like Ohio State's and win between the lines against them.
Yeah, Ohio State is massive all over the field, and I think they really emphasize that. The other thing I was going to say this for the FAFO, but we'll go for it now. If you look through the Big Ten, the goaltending is ridiculous. You have Stoller, McNaney, Fyock, and Fracion, and then Hunter Taylor's having a nice year at Michigan. So for Hopkins, obviously they're looking for answers, and it's just a hard road right now through the Big Ten. And Ohio State doesn't make a lot of mistakes, and when they do, Fyock is there, and that save he made, I think, in the second quarter was probably the nicest save I've seen this year. And I think the big size just shrinks the field a lot, like ironically Chase Erlin, who's on the Hopkins staff. You just can't take bad shots. You have no chance in the low angle against Fyock. He's been incredible, and boy, I mean, you could have a first team All-American goaltender not win Conference Player of the Year or Conference goalie of the year because there's multiple candidates in the Big Ten. So it's just been a hard road there. McKenna is really getting going for Ohio State, a great sign, the big boy. And then I also wanted to shout out Ari Allen. Really cool story that I'm not sure is like getting enough pub. Like he was an attackman, basically an off-ball attackman from what I remember, scouting against him and stuff, and is now playing D-Midi. He was awesome in this Hopkins game, and just being out on an island and really playing well. The Ohio State rope continues to impress me, and the unassisted goals I think are the key for Ohio State. They're taking guys to the rack and scoring. Haas did it, McKenna did it, and not a lot of teams are getting those goals. Hopkins is not getting almost any of those goals where you run through a pole and score, and I thought those were really the keys in the game.
Yeah, I think Ohio State, obviously you mentioned McKenna getting going is big, good Connecticut bias there from you. I think he's I think I said it about him after the Penn State game, but like as a converted attackman who happens to be 6'6", if he's shorted and he just goes and picks the ball up off the end line and like a shot back up, it's like your slide just has to be ready. Like he's getting to 5 yards above goal line, and he gets there in like 4 strides because he's so long. So the way that he can impact a defense by like unsettling it literally in 4 steps if he's coming at a shorty from the end line is so valuable as you're trying to, force a defense into places where they're uncomfortable.
Yeah, and then buried the lead here, but Marnier continues to just have a ridiculous season. And
6 goals at 40-2, king bucket right now.
40-2, and he's scoring them a lot of them pretty flat-footed, which is pretty impressive. His shot is just super heavy. I saw someone compare him to Trey LeClaire. I think that's pretty bang on. They both just, when that shot gets off, it's hard. It's typically going to the corners, and goalies just don't have a good read on it. But Hopkins overhelped at times, and they left those skip lanes, and boy, Marnier was just ready, and he just continues to have a ridiculous season. So congrats.
Yeah. Hopkins has always been kind of slide happy, and that's just that would make a guy like Marnier just be like, oh yeah, this is going to be a day for me. And he's another guy like you mentioned with Allen, converted attackman who's playing D-Midi and clearly loves it. Like he loves throwing his body around. He had that hit, a couple weeks ago where he laid Cody Malowski out at the midfield line and started the fight at midfield. But Marinier is a converted defenseman who's got 40 goals. Like Ohio State's just got a way of, and Coach Myers have a way of taking a skill set and finding a home for it on their field somewhere, regardless of what position you think you might play.
Yeah, 40 goals, and they're going to play at least 4 more games. They're going to make the tournament. They're going to make the Big Ten tournament. They have 2 more games left. That's the worst case scenario. That would assume they lose right away in the Big Ten and the NCAA, which is unlikely. So let's say they play 5-6 more games. I mean, he's got 60 goals, 50, 60 goals in the crosshairs now, especially with this pace he's on. Big one coming up this week that we'll chat about in a few minutes. The last one we are going to talk about is Rutgers, Maryland. First win for Rutgers against the Terps since 1990. That was 35 years ago. And to do it, they used Maryland's exact strategy from this entire season.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of said it at the top. It was one of, I think, probably my hotter takes of the weeks. But, I don't even know if I'm surprised that this happened. You know what I mean? Like, just the way the year has gone, I don't think I'm all that surprised that Rutgers beat Maryland. Even if it's been 35 years and Maryland is like, probably at worst a top 3 team in the country. Like, it's just that kind of year. This is a game too. You mentioned it where it's like they used Maryland's strategy. They also kind of won in the margins on this game because you just go down stats. Like, they had a wide margin in ground ball play. They had fewer turnovers. They outshot Rutgers. But we talked last week about how insane it was that Maryland, I think, only put like 19 on cage and won the game. Rutgers only put 15 on cage and won the game.
I
know. Maryland took 40 shots. Half of them hit the net. Like, probably ain't good enough. With Carden Stoller having the day that he had, definitely not good enough. So Terp's also like 0-3 in the extra man. Like, you start finding these little places in the margins where these kind of games get won and lost. And I say that all the time, but like extra man situations, like not having maybe always like the depth that you thought you had in some key spots, or getting a really good look and missing the cage and just not putting the shot on the cage. Like, those over the course of a game against anybody this year are going to add up and hurt you. Like, and those, I think the surprising part of the upset is those little things like that, those little like minor executions within a game are usually things like Tillman and Maryland have to a T, like it's buttoned up and it's executed well and you can count on it. But it just wasn't quite as sharp for me in this game. And then you combine that with Stoller, obviously just like stealing a ton in the first half and then making, I think, like 3 straight one-on-one saves in the game's last like 90 seconds. I think he was like National Player of the Week, and rightfully so, because he was a massive part of this game for them.
Yeah, Stoller was incredible. Just to recap what you said, Maryland outshot them by 12, outshot them on goal by 5. The saves were 14-7. That was a clear advantage for Rutgers. Maryland committed 5 fewer turnovers. They failed 1 fewer clear, but they won the ground ball battle by 14. They won the faceoff battle by 3, and they lost by 2. And Maryland's been doing that to teams all year on the reverse side. I don't really understand it other than goaltending, and they Stoller. Well, I shouldn't say that because it was a team effort, and I'm not minimizing it. But the goaltending was excellent. They got stops when they needed them. Colin Zeller had a really nice game, number 50 for Rutgers, a good-looking freshman. Had a pretty sick like step back move in the first quarter. And then Rutgers had some success. The success they had on offense came from picks to the middle and sweeps to the middle from the high wings, which is exactly what Penn State did. Ohio State is a scout-heavy team as Maryland looks towards that week. You can pretty much guarantee that that's coming now from Ohio State because I think they probably realize that trying to go through Schaller and co. is a long road. So it's going to be a battle of the midfields, but Rutgers guys, O'Mitty's made enough plays.
Yeah, I think they deserve a ton of credit for it. Like you said, like team effort. The story to me still starts and ends with Stoller was unbelievable.
Yeah.
And I think, we say it all the time, like the anatomy of an upset always includes like really good goalie play and usually really good face-off play. And Rutgers didn't even necessarily get the great face-off play. I thought they were all right, but, they certainly got the goalie play that they needed. And yeah, good shout on Zeller. I think, look, there's a lot of young guys on that Rutgers team, as we said early in the year. Like, this is a team that, like everybody's rebuilding, but they lost Ross Scott and Shane Knobloch, 2 guys who have been like the go-to dodging options basically since they walked on campus there. So it's been like half a decade since they've had to be like, all right, like who's starting with it? You know what I mean? And I think for a lot of this year, like they've been trying to figure it out. They've got some answers, I think, to that question. But, this was a game where you feel a little bit better about the experience that freshmen like Zeller have gotten over the course of the year and the tough schedule they played to be a little more comfortable when you step on the field against a team like a Maryland.
Those Rutgers black uniforms are sick too. I pretty much will say that about any all black uniforms. They're sweet. And continued, one of my major theories about the sport is when you score a half field goal against a 10-man, you will always win the game. And Stoller scored. I'm talking about bearing the lead. Stoller, the goalie, who was the player of the game, also scored. On like a rope to the goal. Like he put and
I will tap the sign again. If your 10-man has no ball pressure, it's bad. You're gonna get scored on.
Right. And then I saw a Maryland guy running to the end line. It's like run to the goal. Try to stop the goal. Deal with the end line later. Yeah, hey, a second goal this year, I think it said. So congrats to the Rutgers faithful there. Colin Kirst fired up,
Yeah.
as he should be. Ethan Rawl fired up too. Okay, let's jump into FAFO. I have two of them. Why don't you lead us off?
I have two as well. My first goes to Bucknell because nobody, and I mean nobody, hands Loyola their 10th loss in a row. So Bucknell, you took the field against a desperate Loyola Hounds team, and you found out.
Yeah, my first one was me for including Loyola in my SICKO game. So credit to the Hounds. I'll turn around with a massive heartbreaker last night. Don't care. They did brutal. It. They did it. They are not winless. Now they're just crap. Now they're just regular having a tough season. Not,
not truly defeated.
Not spooky. Yeah, they got one, and yeah, hey, good for the Hounds. Okay, well that takes one of mine. I'll go with my other one. Slow motion replay. Or replay in general, slow motion. I believe the official's interpretation of the call in the Notre Dame game on the crease call when Lynch fell onto McCool and then rolled into the crease was the correct interpretation of the rule. Like, that's a ridiculous no-goal call, in my opinion. He fell onto the player. Like, if you'd rather him just knee the kid or step on him with his cleats, like, he was trying to avoid falling onto the goaltender. Well, he did fall onto the goaltender, then rolled into the goal mouth. I understand it was likely the correct interpretation. I don't think that is a good I don't think that's a good realization of that rule, especially when it's all about goalie safety, but the goalie's diving in that scenario to stop a player. And then I think we have to be sort of careful, and this is coming from a current player who's as worried about head safety as the next guy. Some of the slow motion, high sticking reviews when it's in slow motion, can really look worse than they are. And I think we might be getting like a little bit carried away. There's one in the Cuse game when Jeffrey was falling, and in my opinion, the Cuse guy put his stick out to kind of stop him, like to basically not run into him, and he kind of fell into his head, and he hit him in the head, and I just think those are tough. You have to watch the high sticking ones, I think, at full speed to understand the viciousness, and if there's no viciousness, there's no intent. I don't know. I just don't know if that's a great path that we want to be heading down, where every single thing that remotely touches the helmet is like a 2-minute non-releasable.
Yeah, I think we've said it before on things, and I hate doing one of my least favorite posts on Lacrosse social media is the huge hit with the caption, "Would you throw the flag?" Like, I fucking hate that. But I think when you look at replays with the slow-mo in particular, on plays like that and on big hits or whatever, if you slow it down enough and you frame by frame it, like, at some point you're going to find a frame where the two helmets come together. Like, yeah. It's going to happen every time. To your point, I think watching it in real speed is important. I think watching it in real speed reveals more about what the player who initiates the collision is trying to do than watching it in slow motion. If somebody's out there trying to lay a big hit on somebody and lining them up from 5 yards away, and you watch it in real speed, you can see it. You can make it look a whole lot worse in slow motion. But if a guy is like really trying to, players now are coached well enough to try and avoid the really dangerous kind of plays. In real speed, usually you can see somebody trying to avoid it too. But if you slow it down and you watch it slowly enough, you're just going to see a shoulder hit a helmet and a frame sooner or later. So I think those replays and the goal mouth stuff too are both still things that need kind of to evolve a little bit and need to keep getting revisited every year. Yeah, no doubt. Let's give you your second one. My second one goes to, and I know he's going to take this in stride because he's a friend and everything, but Terry Foy from Inside Lacrosse gets a FAFO for releasing a bracketology post at all. Because if you do that right now and you put out the bracket that he put out with Ohio State not in the NCAA tournament and Cornell, I think, a 7 seed and all that, even though it was like very much based in reality. Like, you look, here's the criteria that the committee uses, and here's where the RPI is right now. And my favorite thing about the if the playoffs started today game, which I love, is that nobody remembers when you do it that the playoffs don't actually start today, and they just get mad as if they did.
Yeah.
Like, it's okay. The bracket isn't going to actually be this. It's fine. But I think when you put out the bracket right now, you're kicking a viper's nest, because unless you have my favorite team as the 1 seed, you've done a bad job. It's basically what you're inviting all of LAC's Twitter to say to you. And as you do it too, and it's time to start reminding people of this, nowhere in the committee criteria is the media poll. They do not give a shit what we rank the teams as. If a team is number 1 in the media poll and then they show up as a 7 seed in the bracket, you're just like, what the hell? They're the number 1 team in the country. No, they're not. We don't count. Our poll does not matter. They do not consider it. So it's like you can't qualify one with the other when it comes time to setting the tournament field.
Yeah, totally. And as a reminder as well, it's a sliding scale. Like, there's new committees every few years, if not every year. They have wide leverage to do what they want and to decide what is important. And I think it's just boy, do they have a workload ahead of them this year, because who knows who's good, and you have all these conference games that teams are going to beat themselves. And I'd love to see the non-con records conference by conference, because it seems like the Ivies have had some big wins. The ACC has not rolling over. UNC's had some good wins. Cuse, obviously, some big wins here. And then the Big Ten is just like Big Ten football. It's ugly, but nobody wants to see any of these Big Ten teams in the playoffs, especially Maryland and Ohio State, but who wants to see Rutgers now? Who wants to see Michigan? Penn State's a tough team. So a lot of good stuff left to go, and a big weekend ahead with some big ones, including one of the biggest games of the year at this point, Cornell Cuse, which likely has, if not playing for the 1 seed, playing for the 2 seed behind Ohio State. Okay, speaking of that, let's get into the SICKO game. I have my SICKO game of the year. Been talking about it all year. Maryland, Ohio State. And what I am watching in this game, teams play roughly 6-0 middies and 4 D middies. Let's give each team another 1 or 2. It's those 11 guys that are playing in the middle of the field on either team are going to decide this. It's going to be an FU war between those teams. Let's include the LSMs. Let's go to 12. Whoever wins that matchup is going to win the game, in my opinion. I don't see either goalie getting dramatically outplayed. I think all the attackmen are going to have a pretty tough time. The quality of the defense in this game is going to be spectacular, and it's going to be ugly. These teams do not like each other. The Terps are coming off a loss. That pisses them off. Tills is great coming off a loss. Like he's great at motivating the team. Ohio State is playing probably more confident than they ever have. This is one of the biggest games ever in Columbus. Certainly the biggest game since building this new facility. It's already sold out, and it is going to be a 12-round battle.
Yeah, I think this is, and we've made light of it before, but man, like, Ohio State, make sure the gloves match, get everything right. Match. Like, don't be screwing around with that stuff. I absolutely agree with your assessment. I think this game is decided between the lines in a gritty, ugly rock fight kind of fashion.
Yeah.
I don't think either team has an attack good enough to handle the opponent's close defense, and you're going to need to win it with your midfield. I think Maryland, when they've shown like their ability to run and stuff in transition, I think has shown that they're better at it than Ohio State is.
Yep.
So I think like if you're doing like the who has the edge here, I think it probably goes Maryland a little bit. I consider them to be a better transition team than Ohio State. And as you said, Maryland coming off a loss matters. Coach Tillman coming off a loss matters. Like that they're going to be ready to kind of get back on the right track with an important win for the Big Ten tournament for seeding and everything. Like this is just kind of this jump off point for the postseason for them. Really, like the way that their path to Memorial Day gets shaped probably starts with the outcome of this game. So like the stakes in this are very high, and it very much is a SICKO game. Like if you're looking for a game that's going to have 18 goals in it, I don't know if this is the one for you. It could be like a Fayok and McNaney trade saves all day on two offenses that have a very hard time creating settled 6-on-6 looks, and like the way that you try and deal with winning this game in transition is not going to be easy. Maryland, I think, has a better situation facing off. I think Ohio State has Jack Goldman, who's great, but if Jack Goldman is having a harder time with either of Maryland's two, then you kind of get into a spot where, all right, Maryland's got the guy who's going to win the matchup for the day, and otherwise they get to kind of trade back and forth and try and keep Oldman like uncomfortable. So it's going to be fun for like the hardcore fans who want to see a lacrosse game from like 1997 get played, which is pretty rad. Right. But I think it's the coolest game of the weekend, and yeah, it definitely is a SICKO game at heart.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. If you have friends out there who think lacrosse is soft and a bunch of lax bros, tell them to watch this game. These teams are going to go at it. The coaches might go at it.
Yes.
The fans might go at it. Everyone is going to be keyed up. And playoff lacrosse is different in the NCAA. I'm not sure people realize how different. Every year, the slides slow down. You really have to earn slides. And also, we're probably at the time of year where we might start seeing some kind of some wrinkles up the sleeve of some of these coaches. Maybe some teams have been working on stuff for a few weeks, whether that's zone or a new look, what have you. That this is time to start bringing out these looks, because this game is going to have a huge importance from a Big Ten tournament perspective. And Maryland obviously dropping the Big Ten conference game, 2 Big Ten conference games, has some work to do here. A little bit more important there from Maryland in terms of the conference. I think probably more important for Ohio State just to beat Maryland and show that hey, we are the favorites in this conference. So what's your SICKO game?
My SICKO game is Providence Marquette.
Nice.
A Big East showdown, and it might not be the Big East game you immediately think to flip on, but look, Marquette's won 5 of their last 6 going into last week, and then they played Georgetown to overtime. Like, Marquette is very, the under-the-radar Eagles over there are putting together a solid season in a Big East that it looks like a lot of different teams could win. Like, I think as you look at it now, Providence, their season's kind of been the reverse of Marquette's in that they started hot and have sort of lost some shine, have dipped a little bit lately. I think they've lost, like, whatever, their last 3 or 4 in a row. But they also played Georgetown to a 1-goal game. Like, I would not be – the Big East tournament could go to a lot of teams. I think Providence, Marquette, Georgetown, and Denver, and even Villanova all have a legitimate chance to be the Big East AQ. And I think the seeding in the tournament and getting to play games, against a in air quotes, worst team is going to be important. And I think Providence Marquette kind of setting the stage for that is a game worth keeping an eye on.
Yeah, Providence has lost their last 4. Let's just go through Providence loss on the year. Harvard by 2, a way better loss than we thought it was going to be at the time. A 7-6 loss to Brown. That's probably the one of these they really want back. 15-7 at Fairfield. Well, Fairfield's had one of their best seasons ever, and then they lost their last 4 at Duke, at St. Joe's, at Georgetown, and then home to Villanova. I mean, those are pretty good teams. Like, this is still a good lacrosse team. They're playing a loaded schedule, and credit to Bobby for playing that type of schedule. That shows that kind of the plans they have for the program. They want to get to that next level. Playing Loyola, Duke, St. Joe's. There's a bunch of good teams in here. So love that. Big East is anyone's game. Denver, not the team they were last year. Georgetown has really dominated that conference now for a number of years. I mean, to be honest, I haven't watched Georgetown in a few weeks, but I don't think I'm missing a whole lot.
I mean, like, they won that conference last year in an OT game, I think, against Villanova, right? And it was like, Providence within a goal, Marquette within a goal. Like, if they play Denver tomorrow, I would bet that's a close game.
Yeah.
It's games that could all go anybody's way. It's what makes the Big East kind of exciting right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, let's jump into some weekend previews. We're going pretty quick today, which is not a bad thing. This is the biggest regular season game I can remember for Cornell in a long time, and probably the most national eyeballs Cornell has had in the regular season for a long time. going to Long Island, a neutral site game against Syracuse. Cornell currently number 1. I think Syracuse is like 3 right now in the polls. We did a big deep dive on the Notre Dame game. Cuse offense in great form. I think the most important thing in this one is going to be faceoffs. These are 2 offenses you just don't want to see.
Yeah, I think faceoffs, it was right where I was going too. And Jack Cascadden is coming in hot. He had a great week a week ago. He tore up Albany and then was very good facing off over the weekend, even on short rest. I think you kind of saw in their game against Brown, what can happen if you play the game 3 days after you just played another game. But Jack Cascadden has been dominant. I think his physicality and his willingness to be part of the offense makes this a little bit different. I think if you go back and you watch the way Cornell played Yale after faceoffs, Cascadden not frequently, but enough times that you definitely noticed it, just stayed on the field and went to the sideline and held his guy there and let Cornell play 5-on-5. And Cornell trusting their offense to play 5-on-5 in this game, as you said, teams looking for a wrinkle, teams looking to make this Syracuse defense a little more uncomfortable. Let's see if they can play some 5v5 over the course of this game. Let's see how they handle us that way. See what their scheme is like if they're ready for that. I'm sure Coach O's going to have them ready, having seen that game and everything. But I'm looking for little plays like that to help decide this game. And then I think CJ Kirst, as people have kind of noted, I think his name is basically already carved on the Tualatin for the year at this point.
Yeah.
But this is a fun game for Joey Spallina to say, hey, put the engraving tool down for a second. If he goes out there and has 3 and 4 or something like that, they managed to quiet CJ, it would be a statement in terms of a player of the year, an attackman of the year kind of conversation. So look, I think CJ is on his way to breaking the career goals record. I think everybody's kind of gotten wise to that. As I said the other week, I think it's more impressive that he might actually break the single season goals record.
Totally.
82 is a number that I don't mean to poo-poo the career goals record, but this will be the 3rd time it's been broken in the last 6 years. Nobody's cracked 82 since John Reese did it 35 years ago. Miles tied it, right? In the mid 2010s, Miles had 82. But otherwise, this is a number nobody comes close to. 82 goals in a season is insane. And his current pace puts him up around 90.
It's crazy that he had 4 on Brown, and that slowed his pace.
Yeah,
4 slowed him down. He's now he's at 49 he was at 45 in 9, and now he's at 49 in 10. So
I think his matchup in the game is going to be interesting. As you noted earlier, Figueres has been top cover guy. I think if you're looking for somebody to be more physical with CJ as a Dodger, then that would lean you to saying, let's put Dwan on him. So maybe it's a mix and match, and maybe they use both on him a little bit, depending on how he's used in the offense. We saw them against Yale. We raved about it, their willingness to use CJ as an off-ball player and let Goldstein be a Dodger. So this is one where I think the way that the way that Cornell in particular schemes to start to try and hit Oderna and that defense with something that they're not ready for, and try and hit them early with something like that is what I'm looking for.
Yeah, I think the key, we've seen Willem Firth get the pull for most of the year, and I think the big reason for that is because it takes you out of 2-man games with CJ, those lefty games. That's something you'll see pretty often. But Kelleher is going to be a load, and I think I had him written down as, aside from the 3 guys I had written down for Cornell was Cascadden, Wyatt Nust, and Kelleher, because if Firth is getting the pull, Kelleher is going to be really important playing at home on Long Island, as, by the way, are several of Syracuse's best guys, like Spallina, Leo. They got a bunch of guys going home as well. But I think maybe a little bit better, bigger, more physical than some of the guys on Notre Dame. And if they do want to slide one of the big LSMs onto Kelleher, then they got to deal with Firth, who's been in pretty fine form recently. And then, to your point, Goldstein, an interesting matchup in this game because he's so much smaller than the big Cuse guys. It's okay, might they swallow him up? possible, but he's so small and quick that I think he's going to be a challenge for Dwan and Gray. So I think it's going to be really interesting as well. I would expect, because he's a righty, Figueres starts on CJ, but I don't think they'll be super matchup conscious, especially because Cornell is 3 deep with Dodgers at attack. That is really the essence of why they're so difficult, is because Long, Goldstein, and CJ are all gifted Dodgers. And then the last point I had about Nust, you don't want to overextend on this Cuse offense. I think ideally you want to pack it in. You're going to have to get some saves on their outside shots. If you're letting in deep shots from Cuse, I don't think you have a chance, because once you open up, they're as good as it gets.
Yeah, I would agree. I think you got to make those early stops, on guys like Luke Roa, Hiltz, even Leo stepping in from range.
Yeah, Roa's going through a little bit of a shooting slump, as happens. If you're a Cornell fan, you don't want to see that come to an end, because that guy can get hotter than most. Okay, speaking of rivalries, UNC versus Duke. Duke needs this one worse than Carolina does, but still a good win for Duke on the weekend over BU. Bounce back from last week. That's a good ranked BU team, but another huge rivalry game. I just had Duke cannot get outplayed, as in out-efforted by Carolina.
Yeah, I think, as you said, good win for Duke. Going on the road to spoil the BU homecoming game, I think, is a really good win for them. They'd been in rough form going into that game, I think, so, good bounce back there. With Carolina, I know Virginia hasn't been great this year, but you turn on the Carolina-Virginia game, Carolina in that game looks like a team that can win a title. Like, that was a well-played, complete, they're great in goal. The D-middies looked good. Like, they had answers for everything Virginia was doing. They were versatile on offense. It wasn't just all Duffy, but other guys were involved. Petro was looking great as a shooter. Like, they could do no wrong. I thought it was as good of a game as they've played this year. And I think if they play that way against Duke, and really against anybody, then they can win. So I think Carolina is the team you give the edge to here. There's a fun face-off battle here, and 2 pretty young guys, right? Brady Wambach is, I think, only a sophomore, and then Ben McCarthy's been facing off. He's a freshman for Duke. I know he's been banged up too, but there's a cool future of the position. 2 big stars that are young at that spot there that I think is fun. And then the Carolina no-name defense handling a guy like McAdory. Where are they going to put McAdory to try and free space for the rest of this offense? And who else is going to step up if McAdory is the guy that they key on? Is this the game where Max Float has been much better? Can he break out? Can we get a game where Ben Johnston really puts his stamp on it and wins it from the midfield? This is the time of year where you're used to seeing these Duke teams find a gear and get momentum built towards May. This would be the game for them to start doing it. So, like you said, rivalry game. Like, this is one where almost like recent form and all that stuff, like, it's not a huge thing, but I think Carolina's been the better team for the year. But this is a moment where Duke needs to, take what you did in the win a week ago and build on it, and you probably need to come away with a win here.
Yeah, I'm just looking through McAdory's stats on the year. Not since the game on March 2nd has he had more than 3 shots in a game. I think the message has to be like, let it fly. He is the best player on the field. He's likely, if not guaranteed, to be a first-round pick in the PLL. Cut that thing loose, because they need a little bit more pop. But the Duke defense is very good. I think good bounce back for them after I think they kind of beat themselves a little bit, frankly, against Notre Dame. McGuire had 2 goals and continues to be likely the best at his position. Okay, what last one we had was Army-Navy, I believe.
Army-Navy, one of the best games of the year, man. It doesn't get any better. This is like, look, Army is the better team. They are more talented. They are deeper. This is a pick'em. This could go either way. It's Army-Navy. Like, you just forget about it. I remember I went to an Army-Navy game at Mikey Stadium probably 7, 8 years ago, maybe more than that. But I was on the sideline when Army came out of the locker room. And as they come out, they're going to have special uniforms. Navy released theirs the other day. They look sick. I'm sure Army's going to have their special uniform come out in social the next day or two. And I'm sure those are also going to be sick. But they were in the all black just for you. And they play like a soundbite about how it's like rules of engagement are like weapons free, and it's like this intense shit, and they're all going nuts, and it is insane. They'll do the guys, the parachute guys jumping out of the helicopter and dropping in on the game. Like, it's all going to be happening. And so this is one of the coolest games of the year for that reason. Like, there will be whatever. I think it's in Annapolis, or whatever that capacity of that stadium is. It's going to be at that capacity, right? You're going to have 15,000 people at this game, if not more. It's just stuff you have to watch. Like, I'm not even going to try and break down, like, the matchups and like the scheme, whatever. Yeah. It's just going to be a fight from the opening whistle. It's going to be intense, and it's the Patriot League, so it's got to be nuts because that just comes with the territory.
Yeah, it actually reminds me of a good story. The first field lacrosse game I ever saw was in 2006. My dad took us down to a game at Cornell, and it was the first game I ever saw. My brother and I were there, and Cornell played Army that day, and they came out. I can't remember if they were wearing the All Blacks, but Army. I can't even remember why they would have had their own like walkout song, but for sure Army walked out to Jesus Walks by Kanye West, and the first like the military part. And the pageantry of a college lacrosse game is something that you really don't understand until you see it in the warm-ups, the stretching lines, perfect lines, the bright colors, beautiful day. And safe to say that kind of changed our lives. And my brother got his first career start at Cornell. The boys played. I think he had told that story to a few guys, and or maybe it wasn't his first career start, but at some point he told that story to the guys. And the next day, my brother was starting goaltender. They played Jesus Walks as he kind of left the room. So totally agree. Those Army jerseys are sick. That is going to be electric. I have to get to that game at some point in my life, just like I want to go to the football version as well. But a reminder, these guys are going to join the best fighting force on the history of the planet when they're done with college lacrosse. Okay, that's pretty much all we have for today's show. A little shorter than normal. It feels like we're always leaving some stuff out. There's just a million good games to watch. So sorry if you're a Penn State or Michigan fan, but you've gotten enough love here on the show recently, and getting close to playoff time is going to be really exciting.
Yeah, it's a great end of the year. There's a lot of great games left around. Like, look, Fairfield, Delaware in the CAA. Great game this weekend because that conference is going to come down to Fairfield as a favorite, but a lot of good teams in that conference. You know what I mean? Like, the Ivy has Yale, I think, and Dartmouth this weekend, which is like a loser leaves town game. You lose that, you're probably done. That's going to be a wrap for you. So the stakes in games, there's more and more of those loser leaves town games every weekend at this point. People are playing for a conference tournament life in places where the AQ is going to be the only path to them. So a whole lot of that left, and I'm pumped for it. I'm going to be traveling this weekend and like all of next week, so I'm not going to see like nearly as much lacrosse as I normally would. It's going to be tough. Going to be in withdrawal. That's okay. It's probably a good time. Take some time so you can just floor it. Get in all your brown. It's actually a good point for our listeners. Maybe try to get to the whatever spring activities your wives and girlfriends want to do. Make sure you give them some kind of some brownie points here. Get some brownie points in for yourself, because it's the lacrosse is gonna be pretty good from here on out for the rest of May. That's right. Time to start doing playoff scenarios and conference tournaments and all that stuff. Yeah. All right. Well, I'm in Ottawa playing. Looking for back-to-back victory for the old Desert Dogs. And man, thanks for doing this, and we'll see everybody next week. We'll see you next week.